What's up and welcome to another live stream unboxing with GizmoSlipTech. Today we have the freaking epic Acer Nitro 5. This guy is one of the very best bang for the buck laptops money can buy, almost for sure, because it comes with 16 gigs of RAM at $1,000, which means you don't need to upgrade it after the fact. Unlike a lot of other laptops out there where you have to buy it with 8 gigs of RAM and then put it onto 16 gigs shortly thereafter, which kind of sucks, right? If you're trying to get the best bang for the buck, you don't really want to have to upgrade your laptop immediately after you buy it. Now, we are going to be taking the bottom off of this laptop. We're going to test this laptop in a bunch of games. We're going to compare the performance side by side with 3 other gaming laptops. We've got the Zephyrus G16 with RTX 4060 up to 120 watt. Now that one costs a bit more. So you're gonna be able to see what kind of performance gains you might get by upgrading to a more expensive laptop with that one. And then we're gonna compare it with the Gigabyte G5, which costs $1,100 with an RTX 4060 75 watt. And then we're also gonna be comparing it against the MSI Cyborg, which also costs $1,100. And the Gigabyte G5 and the Cyborg only comes with 8 gigs of RAM. So we're gonna find out, is it better to buy an RTX 4050 with 16 gigs of RAM at $1,000 or $1,100 to get an RTX 4060 with only 8 gigs of RAM? So we're gonna be able to see some performance differences and compare the value that you're getting with these $1,000-ish laptops. So is the Nitro 5 the very best bang for the buck? We're going to find out today. It very well could be, because this is a reasonably high TDP. It's the new design from Acer. This is not the same design from 2022. This has a 16:9 aspect ratio, 144 hertz full HD display. It's got a fairly nice keyboard, I think, for the money. It's got a number pad on it. We've got all the specs we're going to lay out, and we're going to compare this laptop against all of the competition too. Now, I know that my live streams are long, so I want to make sure that you know that there will be timestamps down below shortly after this live stream is done. It usually takes a few hours for us to go through and create them. And in addition, I'm also going to be doing a end of live stream summary of everything that we've found out. So if you only have a limited amount of time, you can always check out the end of live stream summary and get a good idea about that laptop very quickly. So without further ado, we're going to start by comparing this Nitro 5 against the competition from a specs and pricing perspective, and then we're gonna get to the unboxing. So I see a bunch of people hopping into the live stream right now. What's up, everyone? I'd invite you to like the live stream, and if you enjoy my videos, you enjoy gaming laptops, hit the subscribe button, tap the notification bell if you don't want to miss out on other live streams, so you can tune in and ask me questions. What's up, everyone? I see a bunch of people. Jaria says, how bad is the display? I actually think the display is going to be better than what we have on the MSI Cyborg, and maybe even better than the Gigabyte G5. I think it might be the same display as the Gigabyte G5. I'm not sure. It's not an amazing display, that's for sure, but it's not bottom barrel display, I don't think. So anyway, so that's we'll get to the display test. Don't worry, we'll find out exactly how good or bad the display is. I actually don't know for sure because I haven't done the test. Okay, so here is my laptop list. This contains basically every single laptop that money can buy for an RTX 4000 series. This has tons and tons of different options out there. There's a top deals section, which is some of my top recommended laptops that you can buy for the money. But of course, there's going to be some good deals down below as well. Now, overall, I think that RTX 4000 series can be a good option, but also RTX 3000 series can be a good option, all depending on the pricing, whether laptops are on sale, how good the display is. Probably the display is the biggest difference between RTX 3000 and RTX 4000 laptops. Displays is one area where a lot of manufacturers on the 4000 series are kind of undercutting and cutting costs. And sometimes you're going to get a lot better display if you go with an RTX like 3060 with an old last year version, but basically basically with a higher end display that's on sale. So it just really depends on the model, the laptop, the unit, because some of the laptops still have very good displays with RTX 4000 series, like the Zephyrus G16 Full HD display. That's a 16:10 aspect ratio and a better color gamut and brightness display on that laptop. But there's just a lot of variety. So be cautious when you're buying, because there's a lot of questionable information. It's hard to know what you're getting when you're buying these laptops. That's partially why I do these reviews, right? So you can know exactly what you're buying, like down to the letter, every single thing, right? So we go through the full details and on these live streams. Okay, so before we continue, I want to go over what an RTX 4050 laptop GPU looks like compared to the 4060, 4070, 4080, and 4090. Now, there are 5 laptops in the RTX 4000 series, and I think the 4090 is basically the successor to the 3080 Ti. The 4080 is the successor to the 3070 Ti. The RTX 4070 is the successor to the RTX 3060, at least in terms of GPU tiering. And then the RTX 4060 is equal to the RTX 3050 Ti in terms of tiering and what I would expect pricing to be. Like, for example, a lot of 3050 Ti laptops were priced at like $1,100, $1,200 until a few months ago when everything started falling, right? So the RTX 4050 is really a replacement and competitor to the RTX 3050, right? But I'm expecting this RTX 4050 to compete really well with RTX 3060 laptops because of the new Ada architecture. And that's not even taking into account frame generation, which frame generation can drastically boost your FPS. So I think this laptop that we have here, this Nitro 5, is going to be at least competing with the RTX 3060. It's probably going to lose in some titles to the RTX 3060, but maybe beat the RTX 3060 in other titles. And then, it's just going to have a wide variety of performance metrics. Sweet. So the RTX 4050, I just want to point out the CUDA core count is 2560. The 4060 has 3072, so that's only 512 more CUDA cores with the RTX 4060. So just know that there's not a huge amount of CUDA core differences between those two. And then if I look up the RTX 3060 specs, laptop, notebook, check. This should give me a good detailed information. I should have pulled this up beforehand, but we can find the CUDA core count on the 3060. You also have a bigger memory bus, a 192-bit memory bus. And then let's see here. Where is the CUDA core count? So I believe this is the CUDA core count, 3840. So there's a lot of more CUDA cores in an RTX 3060. Yeah, 3840 cores to the chip. So just know that you're getting less CUDA cores with the RTX 4000 series, but because it's on a 4nm process versus an 8nm process, those CUDA cores are doing a lot more work for the same amount of wattage. So that's the key to maybe making the RTX 4050 competitive with the RTX 3060 that theoretically has a higher amount of processing cores, right? So you also only have 6 gigs of GDDR6 with the RTX 4050 and a 96-bit memory interface with. So all of those things are going to be very interesting to see when it comes down to actual performance metrics and numbers. Can the RTX 4050 compete with the 3060, even though it has way less CUDA cores and all that? We're going to find that out today. Now, looking at the different laptops that you could potentially buy, you can see that there's a lot of them around the $1,000 or $1,100 mark. And we're going to briefly go over these, as well as some of the best deals that you can get in the $900 to $1,500 range. I've already gone ahead and selected the laptops here to review. So the MSI Bravo 15 comes with a Ryzen 5 7535HS, RTX 4050, and only 8 gigs of RAM. So already we're getting a lower amount of RAM, and it's a low quality, only 45% NTSC screen. It's only like 230 nits brightness, very, very dim display. MSI Delta 15, this has got a 240 Hertz Full HD display, a 1 terabyte SSD, 16 gigs of RAM, and it's only $899. So if you're after just raw GPU performance, there's a good chance this is going to have better GPU performance and maybe better CPU performance. Maybe not. It's hard to say. But the Delta 15 is a fairly nice machine for only $899. It's one of the best deals right now, but that's only going to be temporary. And I would expect this to sell out eventually, and it's not going to be available for forever. The Gigabyte G5 is one of the laptops we're going to be comparing performance of the Nitro 5 with today in a split screen side-by-side benchmark. And I believe the display is very competitive with this Gigabyte G5 versus the Nitro 5's display. Notice that the Gigabyte G5 only has 8 gigs of RAM again, so you're going to have to pay for an upgrade after the fact. The Gigabyte G5 is a little bit thinner and lighter though. The Cyborg 15 has 8 gigs of DDR5, which is nice. We also have DDR5 in the Nitro 5, but only 8 gigs of it, right? And it's only a 45-watt RTX 4050 in the Cyborg 15. Now, the one we're going to be comparing performance with, the Gigabyte G5 and the Cyborg 15, both of those that I tested had RTX 4060 laptop GPUs instead of 4050. So there's going to be a bit of a difference in performance there. Now, you also have the Lenovo Ideapad Gaming 3 with a Ryzen 7 7735HS. This is a 6000 series CPU, RTX 4050. We don't know the TDP on this, but I'm anticipating it's going to be a higher TDP level, at least in the 80, maybe 90, 105 range or something in that range. But you do get 16 gigs of RAM and a full HD 120 Hz display. That is not too bad. $1,049 for that. So it's going to be hard to say whether this one's going to be better than the Nitro 5, but I'm leaning towards recommending the Nitro 5 over this one. Then we have the Zephyrus G16, which we'll be testing today side by side with the Nitro 5. So we got RTX 4060, 120 watt in here, and i7 13620H, but the amount of cores and processing threads and all that is very similar. Now it's very high TDP throughput for the Zephyrus G16, up to 130 watts. You do get 16 gigs of DDR4 RAM in the Zephyrus G16, and you get a very nice full HD 165 Hz 100% sRGB display that was excellent when we tested it. So there's the Zephyrus G16 as a competitor. Now, a laptop that I have currently being shipped to me right now is the MSI Pulse 15. I'll be reviewing this. Now, this one actually comes with a QHD 165 Hz display and an RTX 4060 140 watts. So this one is going to be a highly competitive laptop, but it does cost quite a bit more at $1499. So we don't know exactly if this one's going to be able to beat in terms of overall value because it's a higher TDP and everything, but I'm anticipating the Nitro 5 will still be better value. But if you want a QHD display and a higher wattage RTX 4060, this one may be an excellent option. So next up, we have the Aorus 15, and the Aorus 15 has an i7 12700H with an RTX 3070 Ti. So that's a very nice GPU for the money. It's 130 watts, so it's a pretty high wattage as well. And it's going to be fairly portable, and it's $1399. So this one's another really good option. This one recently went on sale. And so if you're looking for the most raw GPU power for the money, the Aorus 15 is also going to be very competitive with these laptops that I'm going over right now. But just know that it doesn't have frame generation because it's last gen tech. So if you mainly play single player games, then I would probably recommend going for a 4000 series GPU instead because it's a lot more future proof. And last but not least, we have the Zephyrus G14 that's on sale right now for $1099. This does come with a QHD Plus 16 by 10, 120 Hertz, 500 nit display. So very nice display, the nicest display out of all of these laptops, and it's only $1,100. So if you're after a really high-end display that's a really portable package, this Zephyrus G14, it may not quite match the performance that we're going to see today in the 4050 or 4060s that we're comparing with, but the display quality and premiumness that you're getting with the G14 is going to be, I think, a tier above that of these other laptops. Now, with that said, let me check chat and see what's going on. All right. Phantom says the RTX 4060s are way overpriced in the EU. Interesting. I wonder what the prices are like. Absolute says, do you really see a reason to use something with 6 gigs of VRAM nowadays? I think if you're only playing 1080p games, then 6 gigs of VRAM will be enough VRAM for the vast majority of games that you play. But we'll find out today if we run into bottlenecks with our textures in Hogwarts, because that's a very VRAM demanding game. So that'll be a bit interesting. I'm pretty sure we would on high, but maybe not on low. So we'll see if we can go stutter free on Hogwarts, at least on low textures. Then that'll be pretty good. Yeah. So 6 gigs of VRAM in 2023 is a deal breaker. That's an interesting take. I do think that is true if you've got money and you want to spend it for something a little bit better than going for something with 8 or 12 gigs of VRAM or maybe 16 gigs of VRAM is going to allow you to be more future-proof, for sure. That said, the RTX 3060, right, if I pop over here, the RTX 3060 only has 6 gigs of VRAM anyway. So if you're talking strictly VRAM discussions, then you're basically, if you're saying 6 gigs is not enough, you're completely cutting off all RTX 3060s from the competition. So I think for 1080p gaming, I think a 3060 is going to do most people just fine. But we'll have to see. If you're planning to do QHD gaming, that's when you definitely want at least 8 as a minimum, I think, or 12 if you're really wanting to be more future-proof. Okay, sweet. DLSS 3 will handle these games. Yeah, I think so. I think we're gonna be able to play a lot of games just fine, especially if you're using frame generation. You should get some excellent performance today. And like I said, we're gonna be comparing side-by-side split screen benchmark tests with RTX 4060s versus this 4050, and we'll have 3 different RTX 4060s to compare against. So different power levels, which is gonna be very interesting to see because I think the 4050 may actually beat some of the 4060s that are on the lower power limit side. So, and because also those 4060s only have 8 gigs of RAM. So in some games, that's going to be a huge limiter. And if it's 8 gigs DDR4, then that's also single channel. So single channel versus dual channel memory can make a big difference in performance as well. Okay, so I believe we're ready to move on now that we've done our comparison against all the other laptops. Let's move on to our unboxing. Let's get the bottom of the Acer Nitro 5 off, and then we'll get testing. All right, sweet. So we'll swap over to our unboxing cam. So right here, you can see we got a Nitro 5. It lies within. Okay, we also have the Acer logo down here. My box did sadly come broken. It was shipped to me cracked like this. So that's a bummer. That said, this is not the external shipping box. There was another box with padding. So I'm not too worried about the laptop's safety. Given this system, though, if you're going to do international shipping, this isn't exactly the most durable box. So anyway, so there's the all-around outside of the box. Nothing too special on the terms of design. Acer put their money into the laptop specs rather than fancy boxes, which I think a lot of people shopping in the budget range appreciate, right? They'd rather have better specs than a fancy box. Because we definitely had fancier boxes on the MSI Cyborg, and that may have literally been the difference in cost between getting 8 gigs of RAM and 16 gigs of RAM, getting an upgraded box. So anyway, all right, so we got a laptop. It's packaged inside of these foam containers here. Let's go ahead and pull it out. All right, so yeah, as you can see, the actual laptop itself is going to be packaged really well to protect it inside of this box, and then cradle inside these like 1-inch all-around foam. And we do have, let me go ahead and get the laptop out of everything. And there it is. You can see the cool new design with these like accent marks going along. This is different than any of the Nitro 5s I have reviewed in the past. I do like that touch. It kind of adds a little bit more premiumness to it, though this is a plastic top, plastic bottom, and as far as I know, this is an entirely plastic chassis. That said, it does feel like it's not going to necessarily instantly fall apart on you. you know, so that's good. All right, so there's the keyboard. There's the what it looks like for right now. Let's go ahead and take a look at the other things in the box. All right, so it does come with a number of pieces of paper that kind of have gotten scrunched. We'll take a look at those. And let me go ahead and get the foam padding put away. And let's take a look at our power brick. So here's the power brick. And as you know, power bricks tend to indicate how much power that laptop will actually be able to take. Because if the power brick is tiny, and it's only like the Gigabyte G5 and the Cyborg 15 both had 120 watt power bricks. So you already know based on just the power brick that the laptop GPU is not going to pull very much wattage, right? Here is the power brick for the Nitro 5, and it is a 230 watt power brick. So you already know this Nitro 5 is going to pull way more wattage than the competitor laptops, at least that we've tested so far this year. All right, inside the package, you get 4 screws. Let me go ahead and show you these. So you get 4 screws. All right, and then you also get this HDD caddy cable. So, so this is the HDD upgrade cable. So you can use this to plug in a 2.5-inch HDD drive if you want to increase your storage on a budget. So I actually love that. I love that they give you the option, because you could easily get like a 1 or 2 terabyte HDD drive for probably like $30 online, maybe $50 online at most. And then you could, boom, you've like quadrupled the storage size of your laptop just like that. Now, the HDD storage is not going to be nearly as fast, but it's going to be so much cheaper if you want to expand your storage and just store a lot of files. So this laptop does have M.2 slots and an HDD slot, which is pretty sweet. When is the Acer Nitro 16 review? We'll have to see. Whenever they release inside the United States, I'll try to get my hands on one. Sometime here in the next few months, we'll get through more and more laptops as the year goes on. All right, so here is the setup guide. Go ahead and zoom in. So setup guide for the Acer Nitro 5. And I mean, there's not too much here. It does say that we have USB 3.2 Gen 1 and USB 3.2 Gen 2s. I believe this also comes with HDMI 2.1 and a Thunderbolt 4 port, which how awesome is that? How many budget laptops come with Thunderbolt 4? That's awesome, right? Okay, so Acer also has this. You've got a support number right here. Got a question about your device? Ask us, and you can call that number for support. I love it when manufacturers give you like an actual phone number for product support. Now, it doesn't mean necessarily you're going to get good product support, but yeah, so we don't need to look at that. Let's see what's inside this brown envelope. I have no idea what's inside of here. It's completely sealed. Manufacturer date was January 28th, 2023. That's interesting that it took so long for it to release, if that's the manufacturer date. And inside of here, looks like we got some stickers. Planet 9 GG stickers. And then International Traveler's Warranty. So this warranty... this warranty covers 1 year parts and labor, mail-in or carry-in, hardware technical support 1 year. So international traveler's warranty. Let's see if that says anything specific inside of here. English has just one page, page 2. The international travels warranty is valid. It applies only in countries outside your geographic area of coverage, or your local warranty. Who may claim the international traveler's warranty is bona fide travelers who are in possession of a copy of the original sales invoice may claim it. So you have to be a traveler temporarily present outside of the United States to be able to use this warranty. Turnaround time is services will be covered under the Acer within 5 business days of receipt of your mobile computing product. That's pretty cool that at least they have this. I don't think it's going to be anything too special, but some manufacturers, you know, if you break your laptop and you're internationally out of the country, you're gonna have to wait to come back into the United States before you can actually get coverage of your laptop. So I do like that they offer it. So next up, we are going to take the bottom off, and let me also check chat as well. I'll just go ahead and focus on the laptop so you can kind of take a look at the laptop for a moment while I look at chat. Just got here, low level screen. We're gonna test it MK. Don't think the better box gives extra FPS. No, I don't think better boxes give better extra FPS. Ninja says, great to see the stream again. Short question, if you don't mind, about the Neo 17 you tested recently. Did you notice any coil whine on it? I did not notice any coil whine. So best of luck with your Neo 17 that you ordered, man. I hope you enjoy it. And I also want to mention that if you do end up buying one of these laptops, it does help me as a content creator if you use the links in the description down below, if possible, to buy the laptop. There are links to buy the Acer Nitro 5 or whatever laptop you're watching. I usually keep a link in the description down below. And the reason for that is that basically they're affiliate links and they do help support me as a content creator financially. So no pressure to buy. As always, I try to review and give everyone equal opportunity to find a laptop that they'll love, and no pressure, whatever, to buy anything. And I try to make an equal playing field in that I have affiliate links for every single laptop I review. So that way I don't have any bias and I never take any manufacturer sponsorship. So I can be completely honest and brutal about every laptop that I review. I actually buy most of the laptops that I review with my own money. And so yeah, I kind of view them as a business investment, buying these things. And I'm actually in the process of launching a membership program to resell the laptops that I buy that I review positively. So if there's a laptop that like I said, I buy this one and I review it and I really like it, instead of returning it, what I'm going to do is sell it to channel members, and I'm going to sell it at the cost of whatever I paid for it. So I'm not going to upcharge at all. Initially, I was going to try charging $50 extra for all the hassle, and I have to pay someone to manage that program. But I think the membership fees alone will cover that person's salary. So there'll be no upcharge beyond what I paid for the laptop. And some of the laptops that I'll be reselling will be sold out as well, or unavailable in your country. So this resale program is an international program. So if you if you're buying this laptop internationally, you're going to pay much more than I did for it. So now I will be marking on customs however much I paid for the laptop, not including the sales tax, because that's usually not included in customs fees like that. But so there will be custom fees still if you're international, but that should still be much less than any international taxes. So it's going to vary from region to region, country to country, how much those custom fees would be. But yeah, generally speaking, it should be much lower than the markup of typical computer resale shops. So if you're interested in that, what you do, if you're interested in buying one of the laptops I review and I review positively, then there's a membership button on the channel, or you can shoot me an email and I'll do a one-time $25 donation to skip the membership program to be able to buy one of them without having to be a member. So just because I know some countries don't allow membership. That's the main reason why I'm offering that. Anyway, okay, so we got all the screws out, and I want to point out that this screw was, the screwdriver was just a Phillips head screwdriver here. So nothing special, but that you probably want to have a magnetic tip to pull the screws out, okay? That's probably the only tip I would say for sure on this laptop. And then the other thing is you probably want to have some kind of plastic prying tool. I'm using my iFixit kit, which I have a link in the description to. And I usually use a combination of a guitar pick and a spuger tool, this blue one right here. So anyway, let's go ahead and pull the bottom off, or pry the bottom off, and see if we can get this thing going here. So I want to point out there is no pop-up screw on this laptop. So you're gonna have to get it up with a plastic tool like this. Certain areas of the laptop are easier to get the prying started than others. It really varies from laptop to laptop. But I'm just gonna try getting in here at the top corner by the speaker grill, but it's not wanting to let me in. I think I'm gonna try back over here. I don't know. Maybe in the back portion. Hey. There we go. All right, so now we're getting popped. Once you get the popping started, it becomes so much easier to get the rest of the laptop to pop open. But sometimes also with chassis like this, you want to start in the rear of the device. And it looks like yeah, there is actually a separate component that covers the hinge. So you're going to need to remove that first before you're able to actually get this thing off. So now that we got that off, I'm guessing we can get in here. Checking chat. Omar wants to know how many watts does this GPU have? I'm not sure exactly, but I think it's like 85 to 100 something. I'm not sure. It's a higher wattage. Acer has not told anyone what the wattage is yet, so we're gonna find out together today. But it should be a higher wattage because I know this has 2 fans and like 2 fans and 4 exhaust points, and we have a higher wattage power adapter. So I'm anticipating it should be a high wattage. All right, so there's that. So we're getting it. We're really having to use these pry tools to get this thing going. It is not interested in coming up. So verify I have all the screws out. I do. Wow. This is definitely a trickier laptop to get open. There we go. Okay, so once we got it going, I think it'll be easier now. But you just got to get the initial pry, and I'm always, the first time I'm opening a laptop, I'm very cautious because I don't want to break or pop off any of the plastic bits. I have done that before. So, and it always sucks when you do that because you're like, I just damaged the laptop. But I haven't done that in a long time, so. Okay, so we're ready to take the bottom off now. Let's go ahead and set this guy down. There it is. All right, so interesting. Look at our battery. So we have a 48 watt-hour battery right here. We've got our speakers left and right here and right here. We have our memory in this metal shroud. Then we've got our Wi-Fi, which is a killer 1650, so 1650. And our SSD is a Micron 512 gig. All right, and looks like there is an open M.2 slot here. I was not expecting a second M.2 slot in here as well. Here is the HDD caddy. All right, so if you were to install a 2.5-inch drive into this, you would put that in here, plug it in, and then here's the ribbon cable receptacle. So you'd put the receptacle right there. You'd insert the ribbon cable in there and then plug it in. And now let's go ahead and take a look at our, well, I kind of want to, yeah, I want to take a look at our RAM here too, if we can. So just in case it's a single stick or if it's upgradable or not. To do that, I am going to take the battery and unplug it. Okay. There it is. Actually, that was pretty easy to unplug. All right, so we got our battery unplugged, and that's very important, so that way there's no juice going through the motherboard, because these metal shrouds over the RAM can cause problems. It looks like there is a screw on the cover, so you got to remove this screw. And I should get a top-down look, see if there's any other screws. I think it's just the one screw. There we go. And there we are. We have 2 sticks of RAM, and we do also have some thermal pads on this metal shroud. So for helping to keep the RAM cool. And let's go ahead and pop this RAM out. And it's an SK Hynix RAM module. We've seen this over and over recently. 8 gigs, 1RX 16 PC 4800. So DDR5 4800. And yeah, it's, I believe, a single rank, 1 single-sided RAM. So we'll have to see the actual performance. But yeah. The fact that it's DDR5 4800 is awesome at this price point. And the fact that there's 2 sticks, I guess in some ways is kind of a downside, because DDR5, if this was a 116 gig stick, it'd probably be a little bit more cost efficient for you for upgrading down the line. Okay, I just want to make sure that we're in the, there's little catches on the motherboard. You want to make sure that your metal shroud goes back into all of those little catches. All right, and then we're also going to need to put our screw back in very cautiously. Bingo. Okay, and now we can reconnect our battery. So just like that. Lining it up with the fingers. And someone had a question, do I use an anti-static wrist strap or anything like that when I handle laptop electronics? And to be honest, I do not, and I've never had a problem. But I'm not saying you should necessarily not have it, but that's just, I'm just being honest. I've never had a problem. So you probably could have a problem in the future though, so be careful. I'm very careful if you're especially if you're on carpeted environment, then having a wrist strap is going to be a lot more important. I'm on a stone floor, so it's unlikely to cause a problem, I don't think. Anyway, so looking at our thermals now. Julius with the €12 super chat. Thank you so much for the support, Julius. It means a lot. Appreciate it. Okay, so here is our fan system. We've got a dual fan system with, wow, 5 heat pipes. and 2 of them are shared. I'm actually pretty impressed with this heat pipe system. So let's do a quick analysis. So we've got our GPU here. We've got these metal plates that go over the VRMs here. We also have a dedicated heat pipe that goes over the GPU, and another dedicated heat pipe that goes over the GPU, and then 2 big shared heat pipes that go over the GPU and CPU to allow both fans to apply to the CPU and the GPU for the majority of the cooling power. So that's really wonderful to see that basically, I mean, Acer has, especially for a budget laptop, like I would not expect this level of cooling in this price point. Now, these laptop heat pipes are not very big. They're not very thick, but the amount of them is very good. And I'm anticipating some very good all around performance from this. I mean, and probably some pretty good temperatures too, as long as our CPU and GPU paste is good. Now the CPU has these dual shared heat pipes and this one dedicated heat pipe that goes around to both sides of the fan exhaust over here. And for this GPU, we have 2 of these heat pipes going over to this right side fan exhaust. So that's going to help basically have good dedicated cooling for both the CPU and GPU. And then we have that split cooling in the shared heat pipe. So I'm thinking, like I said, I'm thinking this is going to be some really good performance out of a $1,000 laptop. I would not expect. This is definitely above average for a $1,000 laptop cooling system, without a doubt. All right, so without a doubt, this is a very impressive internal system with good upgradability. We have 16 gigs of RAM. We've got killer Wi-Fi. Hopefully, you don't have problems with the killer Wi-Fi. We have 2 M.2 slots. We've got an HDD slot. The battery size is not that large. That's probably the biggest drawback so far from this internal setup. But I did today while I was making the thumbnail, I actually let the laptop idle for a while, and it appeared to be getting about 5 hours of battery life just sitting there idling with Wi-Fi, Bluetooth on, and maximum brightness enabled. So with actual workloads and everything, it's hard to say what it would get, but it's probably possible to get 5 hours on this battery if you're optimized really, really well. Okay, so notice that at the beginning here, I am starting at the back of the laptop and getting the back to snap in before I move around the sides into the front. All right, and I'm moving in a circular motion, getting all of the components popped in. And you want to make sure everything is popped in properly before you continue screwing everything in, because if you screw everything in and you realize you didn't pop something, sometimes you cannot get it to rejoin back together until you take all the screws back out again. So anyway, so let's go ahead and put all our screws back into this Nitro 5. So overall, very impressed with the Nitro 5 interior, at least during this initial opening gambit. And we do have a lot of ventilation too. Ventilation all through here, all through here. I'm afraid the speakers may not be that good though, because I mean, it's a budget laptop, but I'm saying that partially because we also have only 2 downward firing speakers. We don't have any upward firing speakers, I don't believe. So now this is interesting. These back screws don't want to screw into anything, which makes me think that they actually screw into this, and they do. So your screw receptacles for the rear of the laptop is actually on this back plastic plate. So let's go ahead and pop that back on as well. right, so this is interesting. It doesn't like to go down. So you want to make sure these front hooks are in. There we go. Okay. So I got the front hooks in, and then it all snapped together really easily. All right, now let's see if we can get these screws to screw down. Yeah, now we're screwing into something. Beautiful. Guys, let's try to keep the chat in English if we can. I see a lot of international. I love international viewers, but if you guys need a place to chat, then maybe use the Discord link in the description down below. We could probably set up a Discord channel specifically for the languages that you need. But that way everyone in chat can participate. There is no 150 watt 3070. Interesting. Is it Turkish? Is that what Ugar, is that Turkish? What do you guys? Oh, okay. Yeah, so if you, like I said, if you can, try to keep chat in English. Martin says, Brandon, what display would you choose if you weren't an esports gamer? If you weren't an esports gamer, GT77 or the Blade 18? Definitely probably the GT77 or any mini LED display is going to be a big improvement overall. So, bingo. All right, so let's go ahead and do our flex test going around the laptop. This is a great position for it. So on the right side, no flex, a bit of flex over here on this wrist rest, not too bad. You know, keep in mind I'm pressing very hard. A little bit of flex here below the touchpad. No flex or very little flex over here. A bit of flex on the left side. No flex. A bit of flex above the keyboard. No flex in the corners. Going through the keyboard now, definitely some flex over here. Definitely some flex, but not too bad. It's not like horrific, right, for an all plastic chassis. And let's take a look at our hinge stiffness. So it's actually, you know, letting it go, moving it, letting it go. It's pretty good. Hinge stiffness, and the hinge can go that far back. So it can't lay flat, but it can go pretty far back. And in terms of hinge rigidity, not amazing, not terrible. It's about average for hinge rigidity. All right, so let's go ahead and look at the ports on this guy. So on Moa with the 100 SAR, thank you so much for the donation. You are awesome. I don't know how much that is in the United States USD, but it's a decent chunk. Thank you so much. I appreciate the support. So here's two USB 3.2s right here, USB A's. And then we have our exhaust on the right side there. On the rear, we have our power adapter port, Thunderbolt 4, HDMI 2.1. On the right side, we have our Kensington lock port. Of course, our exhausts. We have exhausts on the left and right side, on the rear as well. And then we got our Gigabit Ethernet, our USB 3.2, and our headset port. Now, there's no full-size SD card slot here. There's only 4 total USB A's. But still, the fact that this has HDMI 2.1 and a Thunderbolt 4 makes the ports on this much better than most of the competing laptops in this price segment. So You know, if you're running low on ports, you can always buy a Thunderbolt 4 dock, and then bam, you can have like 8 more ports. So, not a problem. All right, so we're gonna get this fired up, and we're gonna do some side-by-side benchmarking with this laptop and some of the other laptops. Ibram, is that an RGB keyboard? Yes, it is. It's a 4-zone RGB keyboard. It is not a single color red keyboard, which I thought it was. It's not. All right, so let me pop the screen over here so I can type in my passcode. There we go. All right, and beautiful. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at that keyboard and touchpad. All right, so first of all, you can see that it's got a nice, basically it's a membrane style keyboard, but it's nice and chunky feeling, which is how a membrane chiclet style keyboard should work. You don't want it to feel mushy. Like you want it to feel a nice actuation point. And I definitely feel that on this keyboard. Which makes this, it's not like amazing, right? This is not a mechanical keyboard by any means, but for a $1,000 keyboard, this will get the job done, no problem. And it's a better keyboard than what we've seen on some of the laptops out there. Now, this touchpad is not that large, but it's plastic. I can tell it's plastic, but it feels a bit better than, it's basically average touchpad, right? It's not super large. It's plastic. It's like, it works. It's going to be your basic touchpad. Nothing fancy, nothing super special with the touchpad. Now, if we load up the Acer Nitro software, I can show you some of the backlight options for the keyboard. So right here, you can see we have, let me zoom in. You have 4 different zones. You can set it to static. So you can set different colors per zone. So you can be like green, yellow, blue, and red. And then the keyboard itself will match that. And if I turn the lights off so you can see this keyboard a bit better. All right, you can see the keyboard color is quite colorful. It's easy to see, and all of the secondary functions are lit up, which I really love to see that. Some of the laptops this year don't have secondary functions lit up, and it drives me crazy. All right, now you also have other options inside the software for. Let me go ahead. I'll zoom in on the software for a moment so you can see. So you have light effects. You have breathing, wave, zoom, shifting, and neon. So if we go to breathing, you can see it flashes. Wave has a wave that goes across, and you can change the speed at which the wave goes through. And it does look pretty good, right? Like that. It doesn't look as good as like a per key RGB keyboard, but it looks pretty good, I think, for a for a cheaper $1,000 keyboard. The transition is pretty smooth. There's zoom, which I guess goes in and out from the center. Shifting, one color going one direction, and then neon, which is like a breathing shifty thing. So I would do wave, and I don't know, I'd probably put it at like medium speed or something. You could go slow. You can also change the direction left or right. And you can also change the brightness of the keyboard. So you can turn off the keyboard if you don't want it to be backlit. So going over the control software, Acer NitroSense. Well, actually, before we move on to the keyboard, let's take a look at the keyboard a little more specifically. Like what are the secondary key functions? So the WASD keys here have like a white border around them to make them a little bit more pronounced in the backlighting. Like it's like white clear that changes color. You can turn on and off the touchpad. You can turn on and off, I think that's the Wi-Fi signal. You can put your laptop to sleep. You've got screen mirror. You got volume mute, microphone mute, keyboard backlight up and down, pause, screen lock, print screen, insert, delete. Notice that there is no dedicated home and end button, which may drive some people crazy. You have to use these numpad buttons, 7 and 1. And you do have the end button over here. Let's go ahead and turn a little more over so you can see this. So there's no dedicated home and end. You have to use 7 or 1 for home and end. And then you have the power button up here in the top right of the number pad, which is going to drive some people crazy as well. That you might accidentally hit the number or the power button. So if I just tap it, it didn't do anything. The laptop's still running and everything, but I'm sure if you were to accidentally hold it, it would affect things. I do like that you have pause, fast forward, and rewind buttons right here. Now this Nitro button, if I press the Nitro button, let's go ahead and see what it does. If you press the Nitro button, it opens your NitroSense app, which allows you to control the laptop, like performance profiles and all of that. Now, Don asks, 300 nits on the screen? I'm not sure. Let me take a look. I don't think it's going to be quite 300 nits. But the impressions of the screen are pretty good. So I can turn the screen all the way down and turn the screen all the way up. And sitting in front of it, looking at it, it definitely doesn't look as bad. I don't think as bad as the GF, the Cyborg, and the Katana series. I think this display is a little bit better than that, but I don't know. I think it's pretty in the same ballpark as the Gigabyte G5 display. We'll have to see. We're going to find out here in a moment what the display quality is. All right, so looking at our... Looking at our NitroSense app, right? Let's go ahead and see all the different functionality inside of here. So we have fan control, we have max fans, we have auto fans, and we have custom fan. So you can control your CPU fan and your GPU fan. And you could just turn the GPU fan to maximum, and the CPU fan could be set to auto. And then in addition, you also have 3 performance profiles. You've got quiet, default, and performance. And you do also have some temperature monitoring for your CPU and GPU here. And the top right-hand corner, you have Planet 9 button. This is your keyboard backlighting button if you want to change your keyboard backlights. You have your audio tuning to change between different types of audio profiles. And then you also have your settings button. So inside of here, you can disable the keyboard backlight after 30 seconds if you want the keyboard backlight to last longer. You can do discrete GPU only mode. So we can activate that. Let's see, is it take a restart? You have to restart the computer to apply this setting. Type-C DisplayPort will not be available in this mode. So that tells us that the USB-C DisplayPort in the Thunderbolt 4 port, that DisplayPort is it goes to the integrated GPU. So if you're trying to do battery, if you're trying to do a battery longevity PowerPoint presentation, say in college or something, you're going to want to do a Thunderbolt 4 USB-C to DisplayPort or to HDMI or to VGA, whatever you're going to use when you do your display output. So it's nice that you have your... it's nice that you have that option, but the downside is that that goes through the integrated GPU, which means that you're going to have some CPU bottlenecking in certain games because of NVIDIA Optimus. The HDMI must be connected to the dedicated GPU. So if you want the most performance throughput to an external monitor, you're probably going to want to use the HDMI output instead of the DisplayPort. That said, the HDMI 2.1 is not going to be, I'm just going to cover this for a second. The DisplayPort 2.1 is not going to be as power efficient or like as much display output as DisplayPort 1.4 that's included with Thunderbolt 4. So like the monitor behind me, you could power this this monitor, this ultra widescreen monitor with this laptop. I'm not sure if the performance would be very good, probably not, because that's a very high resolution monitor. But you could do it with the Thunderbolt 4 port, but you could not do it with the HDMI, at least not at the full 240 hertz refresh rate. Only 60 hertz with the HDMI 2.1. Okay, so anyway, there is the laptop display. Let's move on to display testing. And then we'll move on to our speaker test. So to start this display test, let's move to a black image. And let's put it on there, and let's look for some backlight bleed. All right, so let's lower this down. And we're going to need to turn off these lights back here. All right, so yeah, definitely a little bit of backlight bleed in the lower left and lower right corners. That kind of helps you see it a little bit better now that I turned it off. So you get a little bit here and a little bit here. I don't think I would notice that much in gameplay though, for the most part. There's also just a hair up here. But yeah, that's not bad in my opinion. That's actually going to be kind of above average in terms of display quality. Now let's move on to the actual display test. Let's go ahead and get our Spyder 5 out. And we'll plug that guy in. And, you know, we'll also need to plug in well, I'm thinking about it. I'll just go ahead and plug it in and raise up the back. All right, so that's good. Now let's go ahead and get things are not responding. Okay, there we go. Bingo. All right, so let's go ahead and get this ready to go. And so the Spyder 5 Elite is a display testing tool that will let us know the exact nits brightness and color gamut of the laptop, though my tool usually underestimates the color gamut. So there we go. Here we go. All right, so typing in the key really quick. I'm gonna memorize this one of these days. Okay. Beautiful. So we're going to do color gamut and brightness and contrast. So once we get done with the display test and our speaker test, then we're going to move on to our performance testing. We're going to test the CPU, and then we're going to move into games. Julia says, hi, Brandon. Thanks for the video. Quick question. I received my Scar 18 today with the, let me make sure the brightness is up all the way to on this. I think it is already, but yeah, we're already up. Okay, so he says, my Scar 18 today with the 2 plus 2 terabyte SSDs in RAID 0. I heard negative things about the SSDs in RAID 0. Would you keep it or rather delete the RAID? I mean, if you're planning to upgrade the SSDs, why not keep it? Like faster performance, right? If you're planning to upgrade the SSDs, then yeah, you're not gonna want to keep it because you're gonna need to be able to replace it. So it all depends on if you're trying to upgrade it or not. If you're happy with the amount of space that you have right now, then I would say just rock it, you know? Okay. DR says, thanks for responding. But I was asking for my MSI GF65 that has only one display port, and it's an HDMI 2.0 4K 60 hertz. I got a full HD 75 hertz display and thinking in second external display for 3 displays in total. So if you have an HDMI 2.0 and a display port, you should be able to do 3 displays. Mr. Alexander says, I need a 400 nit display at least, hence my bad eyesight, sadly. Yeah, so a lot of people really prefer at least 300 nits. You know, some people prefer like 400, 500 nits, but I think 300 nits is a good like baseline. 400 nits is definitely getting to the point where the screen can become unreasonably bright in certain environments, and you have to just manually turn it down. Like 300 nits almost never becomes too bright. Maybe if you're like in a completely dark room, but you know, for the most part, I would say that you know, if you're gonna do display like graphic design, video editing, Photoshop, stuff like that, I would recommend getting a 300 hertz display or 300 nits display with at least 100% sRGB coverage. That's kind of like the baseline for that type of work, in my opinion. But ideally, you'd really want to get 100% Adobe RGB or close to 100% P3 color gamut, as close as you can if you're going to do professional design work and video editing. But I edited my videos for years on lower color gamut displays because that was all that was available. So, you know, like I had an Aorus X5 that I used for like 4 years, and it was like, I don't know, it was probably only 250 nits, 120 hertz display, and it wasn't much better or different than this display in this laptop probably. So, and yet it's okay. Like I was able to do it, you know, it's just maybe not as color accurate and maybe not quite as enjoyable as what you would normally expect or really ideally want. So here's our display results. Let's find out how good of a display we are talking about here. So not very high color gamut, 63% of sRGB, 48% Adobe RGB, 48% of the P3 color gamut. And keep in mind that the thing is, my tool underestimates the values by a bit. It can range in different levels, but it probably is around 8 or 9% difference. So it's probably closer to 70% sRGB, maybe 69% sRGB, somewhere in that range. For brightness, we got 13 nits on the low end with 13,000 contrast ratio. Our high end, 257 with 1130 to 1 contrast ratio. The contrast ratio is excellent. The brightness is not 300 nits, but this is definitely brighter than the Katana and Cyborg displays because those were only 224 nits, I believe, for those displays. So really not a good display on those ones, but this display is going to be noticeably brighter, being like 40 nits brighter. Because the difference between 220 nits and 260 nits, especially if they're side by side, the difference is going to be noticeable. And then again, going from 257 nits up to the 300 nits, that's also going to be noticeable improvement. Then again, I would say from 300 to 400 is another noticeable jump, and then 400 to 500 is kind of another noticeable jump. And then obviously 500 to 1,000 is going to be very noticeable. So anyway, that's our color gamut display for the testing and brightness. This display is the bigger question for me does the display have any ghosting on it or not? We'll find out in Apex Legends coming up. But so far, it does not appear to have much ghosting. It seems to be a very responsive display, at least when I'm moving my mouse around. But we'll have to actually do some game testing to figure out a little bit more precisely what the response rate is like. So yeah, this display is very much similar to the Gigabyte G5 display in terms of quality, in terms of brightness and color gamuts. It's in the same ballpark. It might even be the same display. So Don says 257 nits. That's pretty good for a $1,000 laptop. Nonce says not horrible, especially if you don't use it in a bright room. Yeah, so if you use this in a dimmer lit room, it's going to be a pretty functional, decent display, right? May not be the most color accurate or the most colorful display, but I mean, let's go ahead and let's play a couple HDR videos and you'll be able to see. You'll be able to see all right, so here we go. Let's go ahead and do the OLED video here, even though it's not an OLED display, but still. It's very colorful video, so it should help us get a gauge on the display here. So, I mean, as you can see that it's a fairly colorful display. Looking at it, I mean, I think my camera may be making it look a little bit more vibrant than it actually is, because my color, you know, it might be color punched a little bit with my camera, but you can definitely see a lot of color on the display itself, though. So that gives you an idea of the color capabilities. Let's move on to Cinebench. So let's go ahead and open our NitroSense and put this into highest performance mode. Jara, we got 257 nits for 257 nits and about 70% sRGB coverage. All right, so we're gonna set maximum fans. Here's auto fans, and here's maximum fans. I'm about to change it. So that's with the mic pretty close to the laptop. And then we're gonna also select performance mode inside of NitroSense. This should, in theory, give us the highest levels of power limits and everything. So let's go ahead and open Cinebench R23. We'll install Process Lasso. And then we'll need to get HW info opened. Beautiful. All right, so you can see that we have 12 total cores on this processor with 4 P cores and 8 E cores. That's going to give us 16 total threads with 12 total cores. And that should provide good gaming performance because of the power limits. I'm going to go ahead and start a run here, just so I can set my CPU. We're gonna go above normal. All right, and now we can close down everything. I should stop that. There we go. Beautiful. Okay, so we're gonna start with a no throttle test. And we'll do about 5 runs and get our ballpark numbers. All right, so right now we're doing around 4.2 gigahertz. Let's pop down to our power. We're doing 93 watts of power to the CPU. That's really good for a budget laptop. Our temps right now are 73 degrees and 86 degrees between the cores and the package. We'll go ahead and let that update a couple times, and we'll see what performance we get. But the fact that we're doing over 90 watts of power is higher than both the Cyborg, MSI Cyborg, and Gigabyte G5. What CPU is this? This is the i5, the Intel i5, I believe 12500H. Yeah, it's the i5 12500H. So we got 14,450 for our first run, which is very competitive with the other laptops that we tested. The Gigabyte G5 and the Cyborg were right in this ballpark of performance, and they had very similar CPUs as well. So I got to open this back up again. Running process lasso basically makes HW info lag quite a bit as it focuses on the Cinebench R23 window to ensure that we're getting the most possible performance on Cinebench R23. Yeah, this is going to be lower performance than the Zephyrus G16. Yeah, so if you want to pay more money, then going for the Zephyrus G16 is going to give you more performance. So we got 14,757 that time, which is really good. Uger says I got 6 on my Ryzen 9 6900HX. It gets about 16,500 points. So that's good for its price. Yeah. So the Ryzen 6900HX is a good CPU for the money. For multi-core performance. So looking at our temps right now, the package power is still 92 watts. We have not come down from 93 watts right now, but our package temperature is 94 degrees, so we still have not hit thermal throttling. 80 degrees on the cores. And we're doing 4.2 gigahertz on the P cores and 3.1 gigahertz on the E cores. 16,000 or 14,600. So far the performance has not dropped or fallen off at all as we're repeating this test, which bodes really, really well for this laptop. So before we continue, we're going to finish this one test and then we're going to move into a 10-minute test. And while we're doing that, we will compare performance for the 10-minute tests with the other laptops in this price segment. So we can kind of see where this laptop falls, at least during these initial tests, and then we'll be able to see our final test here with the 10-minute test. I know that like the Gigabyte G5 and Cyborg 15, they did not pull 93 watts in these tests. So I'm anticipating that this is going to get a higher continuous test score. Right now, 14,700. Very, very good. I'm going to reset our HW info window. And we'll see what we end up getting. Let's go ahead and review the performance of the other laptops in this price segment. Okay, so this is the performance of the various 10-minute runs. We don't really have timestamps specific to each one, but this is let's go back to the beginning. Okay, so right here is the MSI Cyborg. You can see that we are averaging 52 watts of power, and we're only doing 79 degrees on the package. So it's not really that hot and not really that powerful. And we only got 11,870 for the MSI Cyborg 15. Let's go ahead and zoom ahead. So here's the Gigabyte G5. We have 3 minutes left on the test. Let me zoom forward. You can see the P cores on the Gigabyte G5 are doing 3.7 gigahertz and the E cores are doing 2.9 gigahertz, which is not that amazing, but it's actually not that bad. Let's see here. Do we have the power limits anywhere for the Gigabyte G5? I think it was like 80. Oh, wow. No, so the power limit there when we were... So right here you can see the power limit averaged 99 on the Gigabyte G5, which is even better than this laptop. That's actually surprising. I didn't think that would be the case, but that is the case. So the Gigabyte G5 might actually be pushing a little bit higher levels of performance than this laptop in a 10-minute test. Let's go ahead and skip ahead to the final result here. So the Gigabyte G5 did 16,000. Wait. This is the Zephyrus. So this is the Zephyrus G16. I don't know why I thought it was the Gigabyte G5. So the Zephyrus G16 got 16,301. And here's the Gigabyte G5. The Gigabyte G5 did 13,395. So, and the Gigabyte G5, I'm pretty sure it was doing closer to 80 watts of power during its test as well. Where the Zephyrus G16 did 100 watts of power. So, so basically that's your tiered structure. The Zephyrus G16 at the top. This one being the second most powerful CPU, I believe. Well, I believe we're going to get around 14,000, a little over 14,000 in this test. We'll have to see. Jumping back over to check our performance. Yeah, the MSI Cyborg only had one fan, which is kind of crazy to think about. When did I get on a jet? Haha says, but it's an i7 with 100 watts. Yes, it's an i7 100 watt, but I believe it's the same number of cores and threads. It's just 100 watts is the biggest difference. And I believe it has more performance cores than E-cores, or it has a higher percentage of performance cores versus E-cores in total. So, so yeah, the Zephyrus G16, you're definitely paying more and you're getting more performance with the Zephyrus G16. But we'll have to see. We have 5 minutes left on our test. We are averaging 4.18 on our P cores, 3.1 on our E cores. Our CPU package has hit thermal throttling at 96 degrees. And that's going to temporarily drop our wattage down a little bit below the 92 watts, 93 watts. Overall, these are some spicy temperatures, but it's also spicy levels of performance for a $1,000 laptop, right? Like when you look at the performance per dollar ratio of this laptop versus the Zephyrus G16, you're definitely getting way more performance per dollar with this Acer Nitro 5. Unknown Frog says, yo, what's up? What's up, man? Yeah, so we'll have to see what we get for our final result, but this is looking pretty dang good for this Acer Nitro 5. Now, I've never done this before. I'm going to try it, okay? Now would be a good time to insert an ad. While we're waiting for this, I'm going to click this button, and let's see how many people drop off the stream. All right, so I went ahead and inserted the ad. So people watching after the fact, you can let me know what happens. Do a bunch of people fall off the stream or not? Let's find out. MK says, proud of you for having ads. Actually, yeah, this is the first time I've ever put an ad in. And it's just we have a little bit of dead time here. So I'm going to give everyone a minute to hop back into the stream. I don't know how long the ads take, probably 30 seconds. So... so the ad was Linus hacked channel. What? Okay. That'd be too bad. Jonathan asked for a battery life estimate after. So, so basically I would say battery life on the Nitro 5 here, you know, when I was just in Windows idling with Wi-Fi enabled, Bluetooth on, brightness at 100%, it was estimating, Windows was estimating about 5 hours of total juice. So usually those are pretty accurate in terms, because they're just using literally how much battery is being used at the moment versus how much battery is remaining. That said, that's kind of the optimal idling, right? So if you have a bunch of browsers open and you have the brightness at maximum, or if you play games or whatever, the amount of battery life you're going to get is going to go down a lot. So I'm thinking that you're going to get around 3 to 5 hours depending on how you optimize and how you use the battery on it. You might be able to go further, right? Because 5 hours with Wi-Fi and Bluetooth on and max brightness, you know, if you go lower on the brightness, you turn off Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, you could potentially get like 6, 7, 8 hours of just typing in a Word document or office work. But that's like under super optimal conditions. Windows estimates are always off. So they're only off as long as you change what you do on the laptop, right? So if you are in the middle of doing one task and then you change to a different type of task, it's going to be completely different battery life estimates. But if you're doing the same thing for a consistent enough time period, the Windows battery life estimates are actually very accurate in my opinion. So it just depends. Woody BG says, I used to undervolt my 8750H. Is this new with the H processors and undervolting? Yeah, as far as I know, with like 12th and 13th gen, you cannot undervolt the H series processors. You can only do that with the HX processors this year. So we've got 1 minute and 25 seconds left. Let's go ahead and take a look at our performance numbers for this Acer Nitro 5. So 4.2 gigahertz basically on the P cores is phenomenal. 3.1 gigahertz on the E cores, that's phenomenal. We are bouncing off of the CPU thermal threshold with the CPU package. That's not great. I wish we weren't, but we're also, I guess in some senses, it means that we're pushing maximum possible performance through the system, which is great. Now, our CPU package has averaged 91.7 watts during the 10-minute run, which is phenomenal. For a $1,000 CPU, it means that we've got a good cooling on the CPU. You can expect high levels of performance for the CPU that you bought in this system, and I think better levels of performance than you would expect compared to the MSI Cyborg 15 and possibly even the Gigabyte G5 we're about to see, but I'm pretty sure this is going to provide better CPU performance than both of those machines, and this machine costs $100 less than those two. So yeah. All right, so we've just ran out the end of the time period. I'll kind of show you our final numbers for our run. Still pulling 93 watts through the CPU, 83 degrees on the core temps, 94 degrees on the package, and our averages on the CPU are excellent. Oh, nice relaxed stretch. Okay, I think this is the last run. There it is, 14,752. This CPU is better, without a doubt, than the Gigabyte G5 or the MSI Cyborg, and it costs less money. 2 giant thumbs up, Acer. You did a good job on the CPU performance for $1,000 bucks. Phenomenal. Okay, it's time. We're not going to do the single core test because it takes forever. So we're going to keep moving. Yeah, the single core though shouldn't be too bad. We're going to move on to our game performance testing, and it's time to do some split screensies. Split screen action with the other laptops' performance videos. So let me go ahead and get that set up real quick. We've got right here, we're going to do Timespy next. So here we go. We'll launch this. Bingo bongo. And okay, so this is going to be an interesting adventure. So in the bottom right, we're split screening 4 laptops live right now. All right, so the bottom 3 laptops will be a VOD. All right. And it may not be perfectly lined up the whole time. This is the first time right at the beginning of the test. So I get it lined up and everything here in a moment. But this is going to be awesome because it's the first time I've ever done 4 split screen. So a new challenge. All right, new challenge, and I think it's going to be really great. But the best thing about this is we're going to be able to see side by side, you know, do you actually get better performance on a 4060 lower watt versus a 4050 higher watt? Let's find out, and we'll also be able to see what kind of TDP we're going to get in the CPU and GPU in this Acer Nitro 5. So as you can see, this screen right here, this is the Acer Nitro 5. It's the biggest one. It's the focus of this video. That's why I made it the biggest one. But it also works in our favor because now I can have, you know, I can have so many different things open. This is awesome. Zephyrus is a class apart. Yeah, I would tend to agree. Okay, so we're about to get to the point where we want to start this. I'm going to go ahead and get the video closer and closer here. There we go. There's that. The timing on this run is not going to be exactly the same, but okay, it looks like our GPU needs to be re-added to MSI Afterburner because we entered the NVIDIA GPU only mode for this testing, and my Afterburner settings now are wrong on the Nitro 5, but we can at least see our average FPS, and you can see that right now the Gigabyte G5 is doing 63 FPS, looking in this similar area, and we're doing 57 FPS. With the Acer Nitro 5. Oh, I got to change the window. All right, so we got to move this down. No, I got to move this up. Yeah, there we go. Okay, there we go. All right. Yeah, this is a real challenge getting this going, but you can see that we're competing really nicely with the Cyborg performance numbers. If you look at the actual FPS numbers here, this will get better as we do some of the game testing, right? Some of the game testing will be a bit better. So, and I'm going to add the GPU to this again here because I just have to wait for this run to finish though. So you can see the 4060 is pushing higher FPS, but the Gigabyte G5 is not that far ahead. At least at times, it's not. So coming over the top, we're doing 65 FPS. Let's see what we get up here on the Nitro 5. Coming over the top, we're doing 60. So that's only 5 FPS difference between the 4050 and the 4060 in the same scenario, at least with the Gigabyte G5. Now, the Cyborg, let's see what this gets. Yeah, we'll see what the actual final scores are, because it's a little hard to compare because these timings are all just a little bit different between each of these. Clark Kent says it's beating the MSI Cyborg. Yeah, I think it is beating the Cyborg, which is interesting, right? Like a 4050 beating an RTX 4060, which I think makes sense because the 4060 is only 45 watts. So now we're into the final CPU test, which we're actually going to be able to see the CPU. I think we should be able to see the CPU numbers at least. So the Zephyrus pulling 82 watts, the Gigabyte G5 doing 63 watts, and we're doing 75 watts through the Nitro 5. The Cyborg doing 68 watts. So the second highest power limit going through the Nitro 5, which is really great. All right, so keep in mind this is not overclocked on the Nitro 5. We're getting our numbers all lined up here. So there it is. we got our numbers all lined up. And wow. So our CPU number is actually the highest on this Acer Nitro 5 at 11,137. So beating even the Zephyrus G16 for CPU performance, which is really interesting. And then for graphics score, we got 8775 for a $1,000 laptop. I feel like that's pretty dang good for what we got here. Now, let's go ahead and modify our afterburner so we can get, we really want our GPU overlay. And we'll try doing an overclock. We'll try doing a bit of an overclock on this 4050 and see what we get. But that's really good, I think. For the money, $1,000 getting 8,700. That shows you that you really can't just focus on the RTX 4050 versus 4060 number, because it makes a big difference what the power limit is. And we're not sure what our power limit is, but notice that by default, when you do the Acer Nitro performance profile, we do get a 100/200 OC to the Acer Nitro 5 right here. Let's try a 225. And we'll try a, I don't know, let's try 500 for our OC on this RTX 4050. We might actually be able to OC a lot more than the 4090. Might even be able to go higher than this on the OC, simply because the clock speeds on these GPUs run a bit higher. So, okay, so let's go ahead and run this back, and I'll rewind this other video. So we'll be able to try this overlay side by side now with the OC on the RTX 4050. And I'm just gonna put a note in here that we have a 225/500 OC. All right. For this test, at least we do. And I want to try to line this up so that we get it started at the same time as the Cyborg 15. So that way we get at least one of the laptops to be exactly the same. And the Cyborg 15 is kind of the most interesting comparison because it might actually lose to this 4050, you know? So, okay, so here we are. I'm getting all of the things lined up, right? Still at the beginning here. So I'm gonna get the Cyborg 15 lined up here in a moment. Just give it a minute. So notice that we're doing 93, 94 watts to the GPU right here. That's a good amount of wattage. That's not the maximum wattage on a 4050 though. So keep in mind that a 4050 can get even more powerful than what we have in this, all right? And look at our temperatures too. Look at that, 63 degrees on the GPU. That is phenomenal. And wow, yeah, our FPS numbers are definitely higher on this Acer Nitro 5 than the Cyborg with a 45 watt RTX 4060, without a doubt. Sabitio says, these all beat a flagship Aorus 17X YB from 2022 with a 2080 Super. Interesting. Okay, so I need to zoom this forward just a little bit. I want to try to get these to line up as much as possible. Okay, there we go. So now we've got the Cyborg and the Nitro lined up almost exactly. And the Nitro is doing like anywhere from 5 to 15 more FPS, 5 to 10 more FPS. That's awesome to see, right? That is really awesome to see. Keep in mind we are OC'd now too, so we should get an even better score this time around than we did the first time around. 97 watts, 106. We just did 106 watts up here, doing 98 watts right there, 100 watts. So I think you would say, at least I would argue that this is probably like a 100 watt RTX 4050. But most of the time it's only doing around 90, 95 watts. So very interesting. Man, I'm really loving this Nitro 5 performance for $1,000 right now. It's very impressive to me. Okay, so lining up our scores now. Now we're broke 9,000 for a $1,000 laptop. So we got 9,149 on this RTX 4050, which is almost enough to catch up to the Gigabyte G5. Almost, not quite, but it's approaching. It's approaching. All right, so let's go ahead and set our OC to be the stock OC, which is a 100, 200 stock OC, which is, I'm gonna label it as a stock OC, okay? Beautiful. So very impressive performance from this Nitro 5. Can you test it on auto fan mode too? We just don't have time, but we'll test some games. We're gonna test some games in auto fan mode. Okay, so let's move on to our next game, which is gonna be Cyberpunk 2077. I'm just checking to make sure that all our settings are the same. Looks like we're doing ultra settings right now with frame generation enabled, 1080p DLSS on quality. All right, sweet. So let's go ahead and get Cyberpunk benchmark prepared. It's a little tricky doing 4 different laptops at once, trying to get them all to line up. And I also want to make sure our OC, I believe I already changed the OC, but let's just double check. No, I did not yet. Okay, so 100, 200. You know, I'm tempted to not even write the text in there, because that's, I mean, it's stock right now. It's the stock performance profile right now. It's nothing special. Wow, these speakers. Actually, our speakers are pretty loud on this Nitro 5. Holy schmoly. Let's do our speaker test here before we continue. Ooh, okay, yeah, and these Max fans are pretty loud too. I'm noted, you know, you can really hear those Max fans. But you know, from a like gamer perspective, very nice overall. I'm loving this laptop so far. The initial impression of this laptop is awesome so far. It's really, really great. Okay, so here we are. We got Peter Spacey Roar. Let's make sure our volume is all the way up. You can use the hotkey on the arrows for volume up and down. And Peter Spacey Roar is our first test. We're going to need our fans to actually quiet down. a bit. So we'll need to set our profile to quiet in the fan profile for Acer NitroSense, so that way we get quieter fan noise. There we go. All right, so we are all the way up on the volume. Here's Peter Spacey, Roar, with the mic about 10 inches in front of the laptop, all right? Okay, so the speakers are surprisingly not as loud. It seems like it was louder in Cyberpunk for some reason. Acer True Harmony, I'm using the NitroSense up here to try to change the audio profile, but I'm not hearing much of a difference when I change stuff. So I don't know. The default music profile, yeah, that was not very impressive in my opinion. And I was not able to improve it with the different audio profiles by much. Okay, so Faded Aeon Half-Life. Let's see if this sounds any better. The doggies didn't like the song. Hero, Zeus, no. Quiet. So the thing is, I'll say, is that the audio that I'm hearing is pretty good. It's just very low overall volume. Let's move on to our third song, La 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 by Deuce Williams. Zabalds with the $1 super chat. Thank you so much for the support. Peter Spacey needs to pay you for the promotion. LOL. Thank you for the content. It's at the moment my fave. LOL. Okay, good. Thank you so much for the donation. So that is so interesting that the audio in music really, I feel like there's a software issue where the volume's not being boosted or something, because in Cyberpunk it sounded so dang loud. So interesting, huh? Okay, so let's go back into Cyberpunk now and see what we got. Don says there isn't a page for the specs on the Acer website for this model. Why? I don't know about Don. If you want to know the specs, you can check out my laptop sheet, and I also went over the overview of this laptop during the intro segment. When I compared this against some of the other laptops. All right. Okay. You guys can hear the audio, right? It sounds so much better. That's not just me, right? We have the fans on max now, and I can hear this audio better than the music. Or just listen to it. I don't know. It's super weird. The speakers are really weird on this laptop. I feel like it's a software issue. All right, so let me get my mouse plugged in. In general, though, I would say you're probably going to want headphones for the most part, unless you're not that picky with audio quality. Okay, ray tracing on Ultra. Frame generation enabled, DLSS on quality. Let's go ahead and get the benchmark prepped for our split screen. Beautiful. Okay, and I think that's looking pretty good. I'm gonna need to turn the sound down. Okay. And I gotta say, these fans on maximum fans are kind of whistly, you know? Okay. We'll go ahead and click Run Benchmark. I think we're positioned really well right now for the Acer Nitro 5. And let's go ahead and get this ready to play. Beautiful. Okay, so our Cyborg is only doing around the high 50s. Well, we're doing 67 FPS in this laptop, though we're not matching the Gigabyte G5. We're getting, we're slotted right between the Cyborg and the Gigabyte G5 pretty nicely, it looks like. I'll see what our actual performance numbers look like, but... Absolute says performance is comparable to the GTX 1070. And that was a pretty good GPU, the 1070. I had a 1070 in my Aorus X5. Okay, so let's see what we got for our FPS numbers. The Zephyrus G16 got 102. The Gigabyte G5 got, I think that's 91. I can't tell. And 61. Is that right? 1, 2 on the Zephyrus G16. 91. 91 on the Gigabyte G5. And 61 on the Cyborg 15. All right, and then we got, let's see what we got. I'm going to have to move the text to see the result on here. Let's also make the text just a little bit smaller. So we got 79 with this. So we got 102 on the Zephyrus, 91 on the Gigabyte G5, 79 on the Acer Nitro 5, and then only 61 on the Cyborg 15. Sad panda for Cyborg 15 owners who paid more money for less performance. Okay, beautiful. Let's move on to our next test. What is the next game that we are going to do side by side? Dead Space Remake. Let's check out Dead Space next. 20x emulators at once. All right. Dead Space. I gotta say, for a 4050, I mean, you're going to be able to play that game at ultra settings with frame generation. 80 FPS is going to be awesome for Cyberpunk right here on this RTX 4050. So that's a really good sign. So we're loading up Dead Space, getting everything lined up for our next test. So 105 watt in this RTX 4050. Yeah, I think it's, I need to change the text to be 105 is probably what I would say. That's the highest we've seen, at least, is 105. But we're averaging not quite 105, I don't think, in most of the games, so. We are building shaders. It takes a while to build shaders. With Dead Space, it takes a long time to load into the game, so. We'll be in soon, and we'll be able to compare our FPS and temperatures. I think our temperatures are going to be really good on this Nitro. We'll see. Okay, so we're all loaded in on the other 3 laptops now. Does this have a mux switch? Yes, we restarted and we're in dedicated GPU only mode right now. Your PC Prime? Hey, Hero. Hi. Hi, come here. Look, guys, Hero came to say hello. Hero came to say hello. Hi, Bobo. Yeah, hi. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. You want to come in here? I'm going to put him in the blanket over here. Here you go, Bobo. That's Hero Doodle, or Hero. All right. So we're loaded into the game now. Let's verify our settings are correct. So we're on DLSS on quality, and ray tracing is disabled. Video options, we're at 144 hertz, full HD, 1080p. Go ahead and hit continue. All right, let's go ahead and see our comparison. Okay, so the Cyborg is only doing around 70 FPS, 69, 67. The Gigabyte G5 is doing 69 FPS. Our Acer Nitro 5 is doing 86. $84 FPS. That is matching the performance on the Zephyrus G16, doing 84. And look at our temperatures. Our temperatures are actually the best on the Acer Nitro, doing 80 degrees, 79 degrees Celsius on the CPU, better even than the Zephyrus G16. Our GPU wattage is only 72 watts, which is better than the Gigabyte G5, better than the Cyborg. Not as good as the Zephyrus G16 though. Oh man, this is some awesome performance, right? This is really, really good. Congrats, Acer. You've done a really good job. Xborg says, I had a Nitro 5, but I had to return it because it had a bad stench. I have not noticed any odor with this laptop. No smells at all. So no problems there. This is a new version, and maybe you just got a bad unit too. So Elegant Spy, I cannot move the FPS, but I think we're gonna change scenes here, I think. I'm gonna zoom forward a little bit. So it looks like the Zephyrus G16 actually got 86 FPS as time went on in the dead space here. So it looks like we just exited the game. Looks like we're going to go on to God of War, but at least for this comparison. But let's go ahead and do a standard run-through test walking with this. Let's just do a standard walkthrough test with the Acer Nitro 5. So you can see the display quality a bit in this clip. You can see that you're actually getting some pretty good, I think, gameplay imagery coming through. And if I rotate the camera around, you can see there's not much ghosting so far. It feels like this display is very responsive, a lot like the Gigabyte G5 display. We'll have to actually see. But man, our FPS is really good in this game on this laptop. And our temperatures are also still so reasonable. I am super impressed right now. All right, so let's go ahead and do our regular walkthrough run. I gotta say, the fans on this Nitro 5 are very loud, though. I would say our max fans right now is probably 58 to 60 decibels loud. It's a very loud laptop. Right now, it looks like our CPU is enough to push our GPU utilization all the way to 100%. So that's really good. This is a nice pairing of CPU and GPU performance right now in this laptop. All right, so we got 86 FPS with 51 for our 1% lows. That's pretty dang good. That is very dang good. For a $1,000 laptop at 1080p ultra settings, RTX 4050 is a powerful little guy, and this thing is tuned really well for balancing CPU performance and GPU performance. Okay, let's look at our next split screen benchmark. I believe it's God of War. So we're going to get all loaded to the same scene area, and then we will be able to do a kind of side-by-side split screen test again here. So God of War is a really fun single-player game. If you've never played it, it's really good. The Fisherman says, I need to start playing Dead Space. Yeah, well, this laptop will definitely play Dead Space pretty well for you. So, all right, so DLSS on quality. Graphics should be on ultra. It is. Let's go ahead and hit continue. All right, so we are ready to do our side-by-side test. Let's see what we get. Here we go. All right, so the MSI Cyborg coming in at 44 FPS in God of War on Ultra 1080p settings. The Gigabyte G5 coming in at 49 FPS. The Zephyrus G16 at 63 FPS. And the Nitro 5 doing 54 FPS. All in the exact same scene, same settings, same resolution. Man, this is a far better deal, right? Than the Gigabyte G5. Simply, at least partially, you got to keep in mind that partially we're getting the performance gains from having the 16 gigs of memory. Right? So that definitely makes a big difference. Now our memory's actually, yeah, we are using 10 gigs of RAM up here. And so we are utilizing the full RAM potential of beyond 8 gigs, even in God of War. So having the 16 gigs of RAM may be a boost here. Obviously, we are DDR5 RAM as well. So that's obviously going to help us do even better. Looking at our CPU, GPU wattages, a total wattage of only 70 watts approximately on the Cyborg going through. Total wattage for the Gigabyte G5 is 60 plus 38, so about almost 100 watts of power for the Gigabyte G5. The Zephyrus G16 is doing about 135 watts, and the Acer Nitro 5 is doing 80 plus 48, 85, 87 right now. Let's call it 85 plus 45. So that would be 185 plus 45. That'd be 90 plus 40. So 130. So very similar to the Zephyrus G16, just a little bit less than the Zephyrus G16 in terms of wattage potential. Phenomenal. Phenomenal. Moving on to Hogwarts Legacy. Let's see how the RTX 4050 does now in Hogwarts Legacy. So we'll load over to we'll just load into Hogwarts Legacy on just this laptop first, and then we'll move to the split screen. I'm getting the split screen set up for the right timing. Okay, so we're going to start out in Hogsmeade, and it'll be a standing still benchmark initially, and then we also do a running section over near Hogwarts. It's very hard when I was doing the benchmark on 3 laptops to actually make all 3 laptops move at the same time. I had to spread my fingers between 2 of the laptops. It's kind of silly, right? But yeah. So we're loading into Hogwarts right now. Checking chat. Lance says, I was thinking about playing Black Mesa once I finished Hogwarts, which is the remake of Half-Life 1, to go back in time. That would be fun. GPU wattage is true. Yes. The GPU wattage is the observed GPU wattage we've seen in some games. It depends on the game, though. 105 is the most we've seen on the Acer Nitro 5 in Timespy. Okay, so checking out our settings. We are DLSS quality, frame generation enabled. Everything is set to ultra with texture quality on low. Ray tracing is on ultra and all turned on. All right. So very demanding settings. You could definitely get a lot more FPS if you turn off ray tracing and turn off some of the other stuff with this laptop. So I'm anticipating some interesting levels of performance here. All right, so that looks pretty dang similar. All right. So let me go ahead and play this. All right, so what are we doing? So our FPS on the Cyborg is 61. The Gigabyte G5 is 72. The Zephyrus G16 is 90. And we're doing 75 for our Acer Nitro 5. 75 FPS for our Acer Nitro 5. Very good FPS. Better than the Gigabyte G5 and the Cyborg again. I think we've definitely found a laptop that I can recommend for just in general, right? Like our CPU, GPU wattage is higher in this game, so our CPU demand is higher. We're also being CPU bottlenecked, so our GPU wattage is not the full 105 watts on the Nitro 5 right now. But we're not hitting full wattage on any of the GPUs because Hogsmeade is very CPU bound area, right? So it makes sense. Our temperatures are, again, excellent on the Acer Nitro 5, doing 72 degrees Celsius on the CPU, 64 degrees Celsius on the GPU. People keep walking by and messing up our camera. Look at the Gigabyte and Cyborg CPU temps. 97 degrees on the Gigabyte G5 CPU temps, 88 degrees on the Cyborg. not very good, right? Our temperatures are phenomenal on the Acer Nitro 5, 73 degrees, 63 degrees. We're on max fans right now, but that just goes to show you how much better the thermal cooling solution is on the Acer Nitro 5, even though it costs less. So Acer has done a phenomenal job with their cooling solution this year. The Zephyrus G16 temperatures are looking also really good. And the Zephyrus G16 is also pulling higher wattages through the G16 at the same time. So there's our side-by-side analysis. We'll move to the running through section, but let's go ahead and do a run through of Hogsmeade with this Acer Nitro 5. So here is the Acer Nitro 5 in action on the full display. All right, now I need to go through and run through Hogsmeade real quick. Notice that our VRAM is basically being used up all the way at 5.4 gigs. There always has to be some wiggle room there. We only have 6 gigs of VRAM on this RTX 4050, right? And we're on lowest possible settings. So just know that you may run into VRAM limitations. And I'm kind of noticing, look at the low textures. It's very, very much on low right now. Like if I were to switch to ultra settings on textures and just show you the difference, I feel like low textures don't usually look that bad. Can it load in the ultra textures? It's slowly loading in the ultra textures, but it's still not. Look at that. Our textures in Hogwarts are just fuzzy looking on the Nitro 5 here because only 6 gigs of VRAM. Even when we set it to ultra settings, that is so interesting. So that's definitely going to be a noticeable difference between an RTX 4050 and a 4060, at least in this game. All right, so let's go back to low textures. All right, so we're gonna look around at everything. I mean, if you're not focusing on the textures, you're not necessarily noticing it too much. Like, it's still playable. Like, this game is still gonna be playable, but it's a noticeable downgrade in visual clarity and additional fuzziness to the game that kind of makes it just look like, you're playing on an older console or something. At least in this area of the game. This is like the most demanding section of Hogwarts, and I'm guessing the textures are going to load in better in other areas of the game. We'll find out when we go over to other areas of the map here. Okay, so let's go ahead and run through now. Doing a run through of Hogwarts in Hogsmeade. This is one of the most demanding games this year. Our 1% lows are phenomenal right now at 41, 36. So we're not stuttering nearly as much. I am noticing things loading into the background. There's our FPS, 71, 33. Not amazing. We're still noticing some things popping into existence here in the background. And look at our textures on our character. It is very blocky looking. This is very noticeable. This is not good to me. All right. This is not good. This is not an ideal gaming experience by any means. Let's move to a less demanding area of the game world and see if it gets better. All right. I'm kind of blown away at how fuzzy those textures look. That's really bad. Oop. Sorry, dropped the mic. Hold on. Rastelin says, why only 6 gigs VRAM? It's comedy. Yeah, it is pretty bad. Okay, so look at our textures now. Look at what we look like as a character now. All right, so look at that's what you're supposed to look like, all right? That's what our textures are supposed to look like. We were not looking like that before in Hogsmeade. So in certain areas of the map, you're not going to get the full texture experience by any means at all right? So this is where we were doing our run through of Hogsmeade. So let's switch over to multi-screen, split screen again. And trying to get loaded to the right section here. All right, so we're running through. Looking at our FPS numbers, this thing is still beating the Gigabyte G5 and the Cyborg. And it's still way behind, though, compared to the Zephyrus G16. So 77-47 for our numbers there. Certainly, the Zephyrus G16 being the better value laptop for Hogwarts, just because of those texturing issues. And maybe even the Cyborg and Gigabyte G5 might even be better in the sense that you're going to get fuller textures having 8 gigs of VRAM on those laptops. So Hogwarts, I would actually tend to say the Gigabyte G5 and Cyborg are going to be a better gaming experience, even though the FPS is lower. Kind of interesting. All right, so next up is The Witcher 3. Before we move on beyond Hogwarts, this VRAM issue is going to be an important thing to keep in mind. Like, I'm looking around, looking at things that popping into existence, fuzzy looking right here, fuzzy looking textures is going to be a big problem on this laptop. Fuzzy looking. Ouch. So I guess, you know, given this context of how fuzzy looking these textures are, I'm thinking the better option would probably be to go with an RTX 4060 version of the Nitro 5. Like, the 4050 version will work just fine in the vast majority of games, but a 4060 is going to play this game a lot better. Man, that is interesting. What if we set, I'm just curious, if we set everything to low, does this issue go away? We'll go to low, we'll try applying the settings. Because it might be related to post-processing and other effects. Oh, yeah, look at our textures are much better now. Our textures are all loaded in with no problems. Okay. So that makes me feel a lot better about this 4050. You just can't play on ultra settings because the ultra settings makes everything look a lot fuzzier. Yeah, I'm not seeing... Oh, okay, here's a little bit of fuzziness. Well, that just may be low settings, you know. Yeah, so this is going to be a lot better gaming experience than we had before. Okay, so now we're still getting some fuzzy textures here. Do they load in eventually if we give them a chance to load? We'll give it 5-10 seconds to load. So there, it's got sharper. Let's see if it gets sharper again. Yeah. That's a bummer. Okay. So certain games, this is going to be a problem. It's not going to happen very often, I don't think, but Hogwarts is like insanely demanding on the texture side of things. So, okay. Moving on to The Witcher 3 now. Auto fan mode, that's a good question. Hey, we're okay. Sorry, that was just me, Boofus. That was just me. You want to get out of here? You can do whatever you want. Go ahead. You want to help me benchmark some games? You want to help me benchmark some games? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Ooh, okay, hold on. Okay. So let's check our settings. And for Witcher 3, I believe we did it standing still. So ray tracing on ultra, DLSS on quality. Ultra settings besides that, we need to up our resolution to max resolution. Frame generation enabled. We'll hit continue. And wait, these are on all low settings. For this initial test is all low settings. So we'll do all low settings real quick. All right. So again, right now we're beating the Gigabyte G5. We're beating the Cyborg by a large margin, actually. Look at that difference in performance, 157 versus 128. And the Gigabyte G5 beating it by a large margin as well, 146 versus 158. But the Zephyrus G16 is performing better at 180 FPS. Let's go and do a split screen here. Sorry, it wasn't on split screen. There's the split screen benchmark right there. You can see 127, 140, 180 with the Nitro 5 slotting in between the G5 and the Zephyrus G16. Clark says, cute Chihuahua. Yeah, he's a min pin Chihuahua. He's a cute boy. When are you getting the Acer Predator 16 or 18? I don't know yet. Whenever it goes on sales in the United States, I'll order one. So... impressive performance. Let's try, we're going to try ultra settings, I believe, now instead of low settings. Let's go to display, video, graphics, ray tracing ultra. All right, beautiful. All right, now let's see what we get. All right, so we're doing right around 60. With ray tracing enabled, now the Gigabyte G5 is matching performance. And the Cyborg got closer. It's only an 8 FPS gap now between the Nitro 5 and the Cyborg. The Zephyrus G16 still has a nice lead at 77 FPS, which is over 25% for the Zephyrus G16. You know, and you got that better display quality also on the Zephyrus G16 too. So that's a nice advantage. Looking at our temperatures, the Zephyrus G16, 75, 75, very good. The Gigabyte G5, 95, and where's our GPU temp? 80. And then the Cyborg doing 86, 81. Well, the Acer Nitro 5 is the coldest out of all of them at 67, 72. So thermally speaking, the Nitro 5 is phenomenal. Let's go ahead and try using auto fan mode and seeing what kind of performance difference we get using auto fan mode. All right. So let's go ahead and set our options. We'll try our low settings preset again. All right, and then we're gonna go to Acer NitroSense, and we'll try setting it to be auto fan mode now with performance mode enabled. And let's see how loud this thing gets as we sit here in the Witcher 3. Witcher 3 is a very demanding game. So I can hear the fans kind of spinning back up again. I just reset our FPS numbers up here. This is so smooth, this gameplay. It looks so good. Our 1% lows at 83 are buttery smooth looking to me. Phenomenal. Let's set our settings to ultra and see. But look at our temps. Even without max fans are much quieter now, by the way. Our temps are not too bad at 80 degrees on the CPU, 7 degrees on the 70 on the GPU, 80 on the CPU. That's pretty dang good. Pulling 80 watts to the GPU right now with 96% GPU utilization. We are being CPU bottlenecked at least a little bit. Let's go ahead and just try our benchmark now with ray tracing on ultra. And we're going to have to load everything back in again. And our 1% lows are going to be probably pretty bad initially here as we load everything in. Yeah, I would really prefer to play The Witcher 3 at least 90 FPS. So let's go ahead and try running through our benchmark. Sorry, I forgot to set it at the top of the stairs here. All right, so let's go ahead and set our refresh. Now we're running. Shaboom. And voila, we're swimming. And we're doing over 70 FPS right now with a 49 FPS for our 1% lows. That's very, very good. So 6550 for our benchmark for Witcher 3 run. Overall, obviously, if I was playing this game, the low settings and ultra settings kind of look surprisingly similar. The big thing I would have is DLSS on quality and frame generation enabled, and maybe like medium settings or something, and you'd get such good buttery frame rates on this laptop. So right now we're doing our RPMs is 5,800, 6,300. If we set maximum, you can hear the fans ramping up, right? And you can see that the max RPMs will be here in a second. Looks like that is the max right there. 7,300 and 7,100 on the CPU, GPU. So let's try quiet mode in The Witcher 3, and let's see what kind of temps performance we're getting. You know, again, you know, I'd probably go to video graphics. Let's try like low again. All right, so if we were to play on quiet mode, let's see what we get. All right, quiet mode. I cannot hear the fans at all pretty much right now. Very minimal fan noise, extremely minimal. Wow, and the gameplay is still so smooth. I'm gonna turn the audio up on the game. Notice our VRAM is being maxed out, but I'm not noticing any loss in detail or things popping. Audio is pretty dang good, actually. Again, it sounds louder in games than it did when we did our music test, which is super weird. The game's acting a little bit buggy there. But we're hitting our 144 hertz max refresh rate with this laptop right now. The gameplay is looking incredibly smooth. Occasional little hitches here and there as we're loading in new stuff, but if you were to play The Witcher 3, I mean, it's hard to ask for too much of a better experience. I mean, visually, you can definitely have a little bit of graphics, but these graphics still look really good. And audio-wise, you could definitely play this with the built-in speakers with quiet fan noise. Only 80 degrees on the CPU, 74 degrees on the GPU, 3370 for our TDPs. Wow, that's phenomenal. Okay, so let's hop into Apex Legends now. Let's hop into Apex Legends and see what we get. See what we get for our... Go to performance mode, do max fan mode again. See what we get for a screen responsiveness test. How responsive is the display? I think it's a very important aspect to this laptop that you cannot overlook. If you're an esports player, you want a display that's responsive and feels good for gaming on, you know, you don't want ghosting and you want quick updates to the laptop display. So, but man, I'd probably never use this laptop in max fan mode because auto fans looked like it was doing a great job. And then even quiet mode, you still had some pretty good TDPs. And the RTX 4050 and this i5 CPU don't need that much juice to perform pretty well. So quiet mode would probably still put out really good performance compared to like the RTX 4090, which needs a lot of juice to function. Don says the wattage dropped by 10 on the CPU, 5 on the GPU, and good performance. Yeah, and the temperatures were still very good. E-Ray asks, what about the WASD buttons? Are they melting fingers? No. The wrist rest is actually cold, like literally cold. WASD is slightly warm. Okay, so going into our settings. All right, so we're on high settings. We're going to do firing range. What is this? Apparently, we got an Apex pack. Okay, cool, whatever. Okay, so here we are in our test. So I got to get repositioned here real quick so I can use the mouse a little bit better. I don't have any mouse pad space over there, so we'll just reposition the camera here. All right, so now we'll go ahead and do a little test here. First impressions of the display are very good. Minimal ghosting, very responsive looking display. Feels pretty good for esports, actually. I wouldn't say it's like amazing, you know, if you're a serious esports player, you're probably gonna wanna go for a 240 hertz display, but for a 144 hertz display, this is very good, I think. I feel like I have very good control over my reticle. All right, let's go ahead and change our settings down to low. All right, and now low settings. are excellent. You know, and it's nice to see the FPS of this laptop doing over 200. So that means that you'd be able to hook this up to an external monitor and hit the 240 refresh rate if you're a more serious esports player like Apex player. Which is going to really, you know, I think it's going to boost your potential. Now, obviously, inside of maps, you may have less FPS than what we're seeing inside the firing range. It's going to vary a lot. But that is very good performance and very good 1% low performance as well. So let's hop into a match of Heatwave. I've never tried Heatwave. Clark, we do not have Fortnite installed, unfortunately. So there'll be no Fortnite test. Okay. Let's just jump straight to the summary recap of everything we found out. Okay. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. All right, so here is the Acer Nitro 5. This is going to be my summary of all of my thoughts that we've discovered from this live stream. Starting off with the display, we got 257 nits, about 62% sRGB, but if you take into account that the Spyder 5 Elite underestimates, it's probably closer to 69, 70% sRGB coverage. The actual display feels pretty good in a dim lit environment. The display is better quality than the Cyborg, the MSI Katana, at least depending on which unit you get. If you get the same Full HD 144 Hertz display, this is a better display. This is a $1,000 laptop that does have a better display than more expensive laptops, which I love to see that. Now, it's not an amazing display. If you're a display aficionado, there's definitely better laptops out there for $1,000 that have a 240 Hertz, for example, on the MSI Delta 15. Or if you just want to spend $1,100, you can get the Zephyrus G14 with a QHD 120 Hertz 500 nit display. So just know this is not like a highly competitive laptop display. Where this competes really well, though, is in single-player games. Just gaming in general, this had phenomenal thermals, better temperatures than all the other laptops that I was pitting it against, and I was pitting it against some nice laptops. The Zephyrus G16 is a very nice laptop. The thermal cooling solution we saw in this was excellent. We've got 5 heat pipes with 2 shared between the CPU and GPU, and even when we were in quiet mode, it was really good. And the speakers seemed to have better quality audio while we were playing games than when we did the audio speaker test. And I gotta say, you could definitely game on this. It'd be like more of a budgety experience. The speakers aren't that amazing and they're not that loud. But in quiet mode, you're still getting pretty dang good performance on the Acer Nitro 5, but you're getting such low fan noise. So it's basically, you're just hearing the pure audio of the laptop. You completely can't hear the laptop pretty much at all. For $1,000, the thermal cooling solution is phenomenal. It's really, really good. The keyboard feels good. The layout is really good, I think. And the backlight is nice. The control software, the Acer NitroSense, changed all of our settings easily and quickly, including going to GPU only mode. So there is a MUX switch on this laptop. I love that, especially for a $1,000 price point. To have a MUX switch on a $1,000 laptop is on the rarer side. The touchpad, I feel like, could definitely be improved. It's not glass, it's a plastic one. It's not very large. If you're looking for a more premium touchpad, maybe the Zephyrus G14 would be a better option. Obviously, Zephyrus G16 is an excellent touchpad, but there's definitely better touchpads out there for the money. But Yeah, really here, what you're paying for is the nice overall thermals, the nice performance in games. We saw better performance in a bunch of different games, Dead Space, Hogwarts, with the RTX 4050 higher wattage. But we also ran into texturing issues on Hogwarts. So this only has 6 gigs of VRAM. You're going to run into texturing issues on RTX 3060 laptops as well as RTX 4050. If you want to play Hogwarts, you're really going to need an 8 gig VRAM laptop because the textures literally just could not load in. Like they were just straight fuzzy, at least when we were quickly moving from area to area. Now, I think if you were to stick in one area, it probably wouldn't be as bad, or just less demanding areas of Hogwarts, you wouldn't have that fuzziness. So if you do get this laptop with the 4050 configuration, know that textures may be an issue. And it may cause stuttering with the 6 gigs of VRAM, and it may cause fuzzy textures because it can't stream the textures in at all. Now, in terms of actual gameplay performance, though, in the vast majority of games, we saw no texturing problems, and we saw excellent performance, better performance than the Cyborg 15, better performance than the Gigabyte G5. We did not test the webcams, so let's pop the webcam on and take a quick look at that. Oh, goodness. Okay. The colors were all wonky on the webcam initially. So there's the webcam. See if I can get it to focus. All right. The webcam, actually, now that the colors have kind of zeroed in a little bit better, it's actually not too bad. The detail is fairly decent. It's just not that colorful of an image, but the detail is decent. You also do get a white or a green light at the top when the webcam is active, so you can know that the webcam is getting juice. So if there's a, you can see it right there. So if someone does hack your computer and they're looking at you through your webcam, you will know that it's active at least. Or if you have software using it, then yeah. So the colors are not very good, but the detail is actually not too bad. This is better than, this is a better webcam than on the Strix series laptops and some of the other laptops this year. It's like a middle level webcam comparatively speaking. Another thing I want to talk about with the Acer Nitro 5 is the internal upgradability. You have 2 M.2 slots and an HDD slot, which is super rare, and I love to see it. So if you're looking to have upgraded storage, this has cheap upgradable storage for you. I love that. Esports gaming on this is going to be excellent. We saw no ghosting on the display. It had a good response rate. It felt really good in the Apex Legends shooting range. And the FPS in esports games should also be better than the Cyborg and Gigabyte G5 because the CPU in this laptop can go to a higher TDP, allowing the FPS in those games to just boost higher. Games like Valorant as well are very CPU bound, very CPU oriented. So I would say you're going to get on average better FPS in esports games on this than you're going to get on the Cyborg or Katana series. So I would highly recommend this laptop over the Cyborg series without a doubt. The Gigabyte G5 versus this, I would definitely recommend this over the Gigabyte G5. This is a better laptop all around, has better port selection too. You have 3 USB-A 3.2s, a gigabit Ethernet, a Thunderbolt 4, and that has DisplayPort as well, and then HDMI 2.1 on the back. So you're gonna have basically all your ports covered, and it's all high-speed, high-quality ports. At $1,000, a Thunderbolt 4 port is pretty dang rare. Trying to think of anything else I want to mention on this. Basically, I think the ideal version of this laptop would probably be to get the RTX 4060 variant of this laptop. Unfortunately, I believe it costs like $250 more, which kind of positions it a little awkwardly. Let's take a look at that real quick. So if I search this Nitro and we go to here. All right, so you can see the RTX 4050 version that we're reviewing today is only $1,000. But if you go to the 4060 version, the cheapest 4060 version of this laptop is $1,279, so $280 more. So that's only going to be worth upgrading to this. This one, it has a better processor by a little bit at least, not too much better processor, a little bit better processor, and a better display. That's also a 165 hertz, 300 nits display. So a better display and a better processor in addition to the RTX 4060. Maybe that's worth it. But overall, I think the RTX 4050 is going to be able to play so many games so well. Just know that you're going to run into texturing issues, especially as time goes on and more demanding games are released. That said, I would say that the amount of games that are going to be affected by the texturing issue will probably be less than 1% of PC games that are out there today. But out of the games that come out in the future, it's probably going to be more like 10 or 15% of the new games that are launched will have texturing issues, at least in the next few years. And then, like, say 5 years from now, it's probably going to go up a lot more. A higher percentage of them are going to have texturing issues 5 years from now. So if you're wanting to keep this laptop for a long time, I would really recommend going for the RTX 4060 version over the RTX 4050. Especially if you're picky about your graphical settings and you want good textures, which I'm a PC gamer. I would want better textures, so I would never buy this. For RTX 4050 version, I would get the 4060 version instead. And in that scenario, maybe the Gigabyte G5 and the MSI Cyborg can make a little more sense because those do have the 8 gigs of VRAM on those laptops. I don't know. There's trade-offs going back and forth between all these laptops, but in terms of thermally speaking, what I would love to see is everything same on this laptop, but an RTX 4060 variant for $100 more. Because then you get the upgraded VRAM, and it's only $100 more, and it would be super banging awesome deal. And would have basically no drawbacks, because you'd have 16 gigs of RAM, DDR5, you'd have a decent enough display, and I don't know, like, yeah. So, in general, I think if I was buying this laptop, I would go for the RTX 4060 variant with the better display. I would think that this version of the laptop is worth the money on the upgrade. $1,279. And I think we should I'm going to put a link to this in the video description down below. But just know that if you were to buy this laptop, this is the one I would recommend. I'll put a link in the video chat as well. So if you guys are looking to buy right now, you can use that link. So, all right, let's take a look at chat and answer any questions you guys have about this laptop or whatever else. Louis Soto says, I'm sold, going to buy it, should last a good 6 years. $999 is considered budget. Yes, this is the cheapest gaming laptops get, unless you're going for an RTX 3050 or 3050 Ti, and that has even more drawbacks than this RTX 4050 and no frame generation. So, so now we wait for the Helios 16 and 18. Yeah, I'm going to try to get those reviews done on those as soon as I can. Chloe says, hi, Gizmo. Do you know when the thermal interface material for the HP Omen 17 4090 laptop is? Or do you know what the thermal... I do not, Chloe. I'm sorry. Haha says, replace 56 watt hour with a 90 watt hour battery cell. Yeah, I think that would be another upgradability point, is having a bigger battery. But to do that, they would have to take out the HDD upgradability, because the hard drive caddy literally sits where the battery would be. So that's a trade-off. And I like what they did, actually. I kind of prefer it. And regarding battery life, I think you're looking at between 3 to 5 hours of web browsing, depending on how you optimize with this guy. Because I did do a little bit of light battery testing on it earlier today. But, and then in addition, if you really optimize this sucker, you could get like 6 or 7 hours of office use, just like typing in a Word document with Wi-Fi and Bluetooth off. Don says, nice. Pirate says, what about the $1,500 Nitro 16 with a 4070? When's that being reviewed? That's a good question. Let me go ahead and take a quick look at that, and I'll give you my thoughts on it. So, I should definitely order this guy as soon as I can to get this in, because this is going to be a very interesting laptop as well. So the Acer Nitro 5, we've got a Ryzen 7, RTX 4070, 16 gigs of DDR5, and a QHD 165 hertz 16 by 10 aspect ratio display. And it's for B&H Photo. Good. I don't know when this thing's actually going to come out, because B&H Photo, they'll list things so far in advance. But yeah, this thing looks awesome. It looks like it has tons of potential to be a really great laptop, especially with the QHD 165 hertz display and an RTX 4070. I'm sure it's going to be a higher TDP wattage on that 4070. This laptop does look really good if you're able to go up to $1,500 and you like this Nitro 5. So overall, can I recommend this Nitro 5? Yes, for $1,000, it's really good. Just know there's VRAM limitations. Thermals on it are fantastic. Speakers are pretty meh. Webcam was decent for a gaming laptop. Keyboard's nice. Touchpad's meh. And performance in the vast majority of games is phenomenal. It's really, really good performance for $1,000. So that's the key, I think, and really good CPU performance with a display that is adequate enough for an entry-level gaming laptop, though I do prefer a higher quality display if possible. At least 300 nits with 100% sRGB is kind of like the ideal budget entry level. So it's a little bit below the ideal, but it's still enough. I feel like it's not such a bad experience playing on it, right? So yeah, there's my Acer Nitro 5 RTX 4050 review. I think a lot of people are going to really love this laptop and have no problems with it. The software was easy to control and did everything really effectively and quickly and efficiently without any bugs. 0 bugs in the software. Alienware, this is how you need to execute your command center. Just make it as simple as the NitroSense and you will sell twice as many laptops, Alienware. I'm telling you, all right? This is all Alienware has to do. Just change the software to match the NitroSense. It's so simple. That Nitro 16 you compare it to the Zephyrus 16. Well, kind of. I would say the Nitro 16 is actually a thicker laptop. So the Zephyrus G16 is actually more of a thin and light type of category. I would say the Nitro 16 should actually be compared against the Asus Strix G16 because those are both thicker machines with higher power limits. So more of an apples to apples comparison. Anyway, guys, that's it for this live stream. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you guys in the next one. I've got Razer Blade 15 review coming up soon, and I've got the MSI GE78HX, and I'm going to make a membership video. I'm going to really try to sell these gaming laptops that I've got on hand that I'm recommending, I'm not returning, so I can go ahead and buy more laptops to do more reviews, because I really want to get the Lenovo Legion Pro 7i in and Lenovo Legion Pro 7, as well as the 5 Pro as well. So Chloe says Helios 18 is going to come out in May. Interesting. That'd be pretty interesting. Fart Mendius says you got to get an Asus ROG Strix 4060. It's like the best of the 4060s. That's been pretty interesting. Yeah. Nitro 16's in May too. Freemote says nice setup behind you. Yeah, it's pretty sweet. I do enjoy using the setup behind me. Thank you guys so much. Peace out, everyone. Bye-bye. I hope you guys enjoyed the live stream.